Hi everybody, this is Kefren, your favorite French Canadian. Today I'm going to show you how to boost your FPS in Stalker 2. This game demands a lot of resources, so we're going to start by optimizing Windows. After that, we're going to look in your NVIDIA parameter, and at the end, we're going to go inside of the game. So now for Windows, we're going to start by writing settings, and we're going to go to the settings of Windows 11. We're gonna start by gaming over there. So the first one is game bar. This one I really recommend to deactivate it. It's causing issue and also you're losing some FPS with it. Except if you have a Ryzen CPU, the 7900X3D or the 7950X3D. They're using the game bar to prioritize your CCD when you're playing video games. So super important to use that if you have those processors. If you have any other processor, just deactivate it. After that, we're going to go to graphic. We're going to change default graphic setting over there. Make sure that your hardware accelerated GPU scheduling is at on. Super important to do that. We're going to go to gaming again, capture, make sure that everything is deactivated like this. So you want to save all your resources. And the last one is game mode. Now game mode honestly is really good. Back then with Windows 10, it was a bit sketchy and a lot of like stuttering issue, but now you really need to using it to make sure that all your resources are prioritizing your video games. Another thing that I recommend, we're going to go to system, is your power. Back then, we were recommending to use the best performance, but now, honestly, just use balance. You will have better boost clock, longer boost clock. I did a couple of benchmark, balance versus best performance, and honestly, I'm getting better result with balance, so super important to do that. Another thing I want to mention is some recommendations. So make sure that your XMP profile is activated if you have it on your BIOS. Super important. Make sure that you download the latest chipset driver for your CPU if you have an AMD or Intel. Also, make sure that you update your BIOS to make sure that you have all the latest update from your CPU or your motherboard provider. Make sure that you have your Windows update up to date. And the last one is also make sure that you have the latest driver from your GPU. So if you have an NVIDIA card, Radeon, or Intel, super important. They always push new update and they optimize a lot of stuff in it. So now let's go to the NVIDIA app. The first thing that I want to recommend, I'm not a huge fan, honestly, of the overlay. So NVIDIA overlay, I really recommend to deactivate this one. Sometimes it's causing issue like stuttering, you're losing some FPS with it, so I really recommend to deactivate it. Also, we're gonna go to the control panel. I'm gonna show you some optimization that you can do. So we're gonna go to the manage 3D setting first. So the first thing that you should definitely activate it is your low latency mode. Make sure this one is at on. Another thing that I recommend is your power management mode. This one, pretty much the same thing than the one from Windows. Make sure that you're using normal. Don't use the maximum performance. I'm getting also better boost clock, more FPS with it. And the last one is your shader cache size. By default, your cache will be driver default like this. And normally it's 4 gig. I recommend to start with 10 if you don't have a lot of space on your computer. And if you have a lot of space, go with 100 gig. Honestly, it's a game changer for your cache size. You're going to struggle less with stuttering and also that your game need to recompile and stuff like that. If you install a lot of game, this one can be very good for you. Now let's go to change resolution. The last one, really important to make sure that first of all that you're selecting the monitor, that first of all you're using the native resolution of your monitor, and also super important to have a proper refresh rate over there. By default, sometimes when you just change your monitor, it will be at 60 Hz. So depending on the type of monitor that you buy, 144, 240, make sure that you're selecting this one. This option also, you can change it on Windows or your Radeon driver if you have a Radeon card, so no problem with that. The last one is your G-Sync. If you want to activate your G-Sync, really important to select the monitor. It needs to be compatible and you will enable over there. I'm not using G-Sync me. I always unlock my FPS because I want the lowest input lag. But if you don't like those steering line, definitely activate your G-Sync over there. So now let's go back to the game. So now inside of the game. So first of all, graphic card, make sure that you have your proper graphic card. I know some folks are playing on a laptop, and sometimes you have your integrated GPU and your dedicated GPU. So make sure it's over there. Make sure that you're playing full screen exclusive. Really important to maximize your FPS and have the lowest input lag possible. Display resolution, I recommend to go with native. So in my case, it's 1440p. Depending on your monitor, just plain native. We're gonna use some upscaling technique after that to optimize our FPS. And I want to mention this game in 4K, tank your FPS. It's pretty crazy. Field of view by default it's 90. If you increase it, you're gonna lose some FPS because you're gonna see like more large like in front of you. So you have to render more. So don't go too crazy with this one. If you're using frame gen, your VSync will be deactivated. Honestly, if you're playing this game in TAA, you can use G-Sync, FreeSync if you want to synchronize your monitor and your GPU. Not a big fan of VSync. It adds input lag. So yeah. Frame rate. Just put this one, for me, I just, no limit. I unlock to have the lowest input lag possible. If you have thermals issue, sometimes it's just better to lock your FPS. So for example, you're playing on a laptop with a 60 Hz monitor, sometimes just lock your FPS at 60. It will be better for your performance. And if it's possible, use the reflex low latency if you have an NVIDIA card here at enable. So now let's go to the graphics section. So texture quality, it's not that bad for the VRAM. The maximum that I saw, it's 10 gig of VRAM. So if you have 10 gig and more, just play at epic. If you have 8 gig high, 6 gig medium, and less than 6 gig, go at low. For air, you can definitely run this one at high without any issue. Object detail, effect quality, I recommend to go with medium. You're gonna save 2 to 3% for each bracket if you compare for epic. So 2.3, 2.3, so almost like 5% at medium. So those one at medium. Material, you can easily run this one at high, not too much impact on your FPS. Post-processing, I recommend to go with medium. First of all, you're gonna gain a nice 4% boost in your FPS, and also the game is less blurry at medium. So my recommendation is use that one. Anti-aliasing, if you're using DLSS, it's not applicable, but if you're using TAA, I recommend to go with medium. You're gonna gain a 4% boost, and again, less blurriness. Motion blur strength, I just go with 0%. I don't use any motion blur in any game. Again, for clear visibility. Same thing with depth of field, I just go with low. Light shaft can tank your FPS like crazy. So this one I recommend to just disable. Sharpness, it depends on what you're gonna use. For an example, if you're using DLSS or FSR, I recommend something between 60 to 70%, but it's question of preference. If you feel that your game is too blurry, go higher. If you feel that your game looks like an Instagram filter, go lower. It doesn't affect your FPS. Upscaling method, right now, my recommendation is pretty simple. If you have an RTX card from NVIDIA, 4000 series or more recent, use DLSS at quality. You're gonna gain like 8 to 10% boost in your FPS. And activate the DLSS frame generation. This is the best way to run the game for the upscaling technique if you compare it to FSR. But if you have a Radeon card, RTX 2000, RTX 3000, so an NVIDIA card that can't run the frame generation, I recommend to go with, FSR3 at quality with the FSR3 frame generation activated over there. So you're gonna gain a nice 8% boost with your FSR over here, and you're gonna get like something like 30% to 32% with your frame gen activated. FSR is not on par with DLSS in this game. DLSS is a little bit better, but honestly, you need those performance. So if you have an RTX card, definitely a 2000 and 3000 series, definitely use FSR. Don't use DLSS. You're gonna get the nice boost FPS with your frame gen over there. So let's get back to DLSS and frame gen at on. After that, shading quality. This one is a bit tricky. If you have an old GPU, like 3-4 years old or more, definitely go with medium. It will help a lot. If you have something recent for the past like 2 or 3 years, you can run shading quality at high. Global illumination, I recommend to go with medium. A nice 5% boost over there. Reflection, medium. It's gonna stabilize a lot your FPS. And shadow quality, this one is pretty huge. If I compare epic to low, you can expect 20% boost. At low, the game is a bit flat. If you know, Stalker 2 is an experience game, you want to be immersive in the game. So you can definitely test it out medium, but I just want to show you this is probably the parameter that will provide you the most of your FPS. So that's why I recommend to go with low if you need FPS. Cloud, fog, and sky, sorry, you can run this one pretty much at high. And those one are very also... intensive in your FPS. For rich quality, I recommend medium or even low. Yeah, you can expect a nice 8% boost over there. And environment draw distance, this one tank your FPS. It's almost like 5 to 6% for each bracket. At near, honestly, you will see a lot of pop-in. It's not that good when you're playing the game, honestly, your image quality. So my recommendation is go with medium with this one. So this is pretty much it, guys, for my Stalker 2 guide. If you have any questions, just comment in the YouTube section. Post me your rig, CPU, GPU, and RAM. I will try to help you the best that I can. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Peace.